So good morning, everyone. Today is the 24th of May, and it's actually Memorial Day weekend. So we've got a lot of things happening and going on. Bob will be joining me here shortly as he's getting our Facebook Live going. That's why I have to be careful out in public, because I do that little cough. Which scares people. Great. So our topic today is follow your heart. And I'm sure you've heard that 100,000 times in your life, but I'm not sure you heard it with the way we're meaning it and I'm meaning it. And the way that I'm meaning it is that we're having a lot of choices become available to us right now, because the staying at home mandate from our governments has ended in our areas, and people now have a lot of choices. And so, what I really believe is everybody's situation is different, and it's an individual choice. People have to decide. They have to know their own risks and their own willingness to take those risks and decide what they want to do. And that's all good and right. And we don't want to make anybody wrong in whatever their choices are. But really, in following your heart, what I mean is follow your inner guidance. I don't mean do whatever feels good to you or do whatever you want. We know we can get into trouble with that because we all want to do a lot of things and we all want a lot of things. But what I mean is follow your inner guidance. And that's something that we have to develop and learn to trust. We first of all have to learn, what is it? How do we develop it? And then how do we trust it? And so, because we have many voices in our heads, we have the critic, the pusher, the guilty part of you. We have all these voices, the inner child that wants just everything and to have a good time right now. So how do you recognize that voice? We call it, intuition means the inner teacher. But I'm not talking about just your intuition about what you think is going to happen or what will be okay. I'm talking about learning to cultivate and listen to that inner voice, which you do by entering the silence and learning to listen, learning to communicate even. And once you get that going, you don't mistake it for any other voice. When Bob and I were discussing this earlier, he was talking about the danger of this kind of recommendation, because as we know, having worked in mental wellness and mental illness for so many years, this is exactly what people do who follow the voice that tells them to murder someone or do a mass murder, and they were saying, well, I was told to do this. So we're lots of different voices that we could hear. But my own personal experience is that you don't mistake this inner guidance voice, because first of all, it never tells you what to do, but it does give you guidance in other ways. And whenever you hear it, it makes you feel peaceful and wonderful and supported and understood. And although it may be contrary to your common sense sometimes, because our common sense kind of wants to be very cautious. So it may take you out on a limb sometimes and urge you to risk telling you that all will be well if you do that. It never tells you what to do, and it never makes you feel uncomfortable. So Bob, do you want to add to that?
Well, recently I had the occasion of looking at a loaf of bread, and I realized that the slice that I wanted to have had a lot of calories, and then I asked my inner voice, that inner part of me, my inner knowing, what I should do, and I heard very distinctly, peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter, that will serve you well. And having listened to that voice, of course, I quickly put the bread in the toaster and toasted it, and I had my toast, and I knew that I was guided. All right, I'm being facetious, but a lot of, unfortunately, people that I hear that talk about guidance, they already have something they want to have be okay, and they're waiting for the voice to say yes. And so when you anticipate, things going your way, which you've already decided, and all you really want is a voice inside of your head somewhere that says, yes, I agree with you, that won't be that hard to get. So I think one of the important pieces that Judith has mentioned is the context. What is the context of this? And very often, I have been given advice and suggestions and ideas from what I call spirit that made no sense to me at the time. The context had to be right. Something had to happen in order for that to gel. So, oh, that's what that means, or that's what I'm supposed to do or can do. But I think the first thing I want to say is we need to look at life with kind eyes. And if we look at life with kind eyes, meaning we're not looking for fault, we're not looking to prove a point, we're not looking to justify a position, we're not looking to make someone else wrong, what I think can happen then is we can hear with our hearts, we can hear with our senses, and we can listen to what's going on, and then we can see about application. And I guess the distinction I want to make when I hear people often say to me, Spirit told me to do this, standing naked out on I-95, yes. That's what Spirit said to do. What about getting arrested? Spirit didn't say anything about getting arrested. That just happened. There must be a lesson in this somewhere. The lesson might be when Spirit says stand naked in I-95, it might be a metaphor. It might be symbolic. It might be a suggestion for a way you want to approach the highway of life. You may want to look at the rest of your senses and ask some questions and utilize all of who you are, not just whatever you happen to be hearing at the moment. Remember, finding context for things really makes a difference. And so my big upset and my great breakthrough is listening to the whole body and the body of your experience rather than just one small piece. That one small piece may bring things together, it may connect things, it may help you, but be careful whenever the voice says to you something like stand on I-95 naked, that maybe there is a reason for that having been said to you that you do not yet understand. Maybe there's a message in that you can use or that will make sense to you later. And like I said, very often my experience has been things that I have been given that I believe are from Spirit are given in metaphor. They're given in picture form. They're not given to be taken literally. And I think the most craziest thing I've seen us do as a humanity is literally to take everything literally. And that's not really very helpful. So anyway, that's what I wanted to add to that particular piece. But before we go any further, I wanted to say thank you for all of the people that I know and don't know that have gone before us, who have been involved in one war or another to try to preserve an idea that our Constitution is created around, an idea of freedom and an idea of individual thinking, an idea that would allow us to be here today doing this, that have lost their lives, that have given up their lives for that. And I think that's a huge thing for us to recognize. And in some way, we're giving up one kind of life for another all the time. We're giving up a life of having everything for a life of having the right things, or having the things that are right for us. And that's so important to see that we're all in this human juggling, and we're going to drop something, and we're often going to get dropped, and that's going to be really difficult. But I wanted to say thank you to all of the pioneers for freedom, for all of those that have stood for justice, that are standing for justice right now, even within our group, that are fighting for an end to tyranny, an end to war, an end to injustice. That's huge. And Memorial Day really ought to celebrate that in every one of us, not just in those who've crossed over. For those that have crossed over, I believe a different and better life already exists. But we have to deal with this life.
All right, thank you for making that transition. I wanted to go there too. There is no bigger sacrifice than giving one's life for one's country. And, I would rather be a pacifist. I'd rather say I never want to see another. I mean, I do say I never want to see another war. It just seems crazy to me. And it certainly is chaos. And this week in our Walter Starkey book, It's All God, we were looking at chaos and what that is. And certainly we feel like there's chaos going on in the world right now. Our lives are upside down with the chaos. And Walter Starkey points out that chaos comes from a Greek word that means empty space, which doesn't seem to be what we think of chaos at all. And yet it is, it creates a space for something new. And that's what happens with war, actually, too. The chaos of the war. After that comes peace. And people have a greater appreciation for the peace after the war than they did before the war. And we have to remember that our whole universe as we know it came out of the chaos of the explosion of the Big Bang. And so he calls it the womb. Chaos is the womb of all creation. Chaos is the womb of life out of which comes a reborn universe or a reborn self. So we can ask ourselves, how will we be reborn after the chaos of this pandemic? How will we be stronger, wiser, or even more aware spiritually from your solitude time? So we need to look at that. And he rewrote the 23rd Psalm, which I'd like to read with you now as a prayer. And it's he intertwined chaos into this because, of course, the 23rd Psalm is how to stay out of fear when threatened. So his interpretation is this: the Lord is now my shepherd. So even in chaos, I will not want for anything. I have been created to lie down in green pastures, even in the face of chaos. In the midst of chaos, I am led to stillness. When chaos has affected me, spirit restores my soul. Even in chaos, it leads me in the right direction because God is the only power. Lo, though I walk through the valley of chaos, I will fear no evil because I can lean on spirit and it keeps me in line. It prepares a table before me in the presence of my fear and doubt. My cup of life runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. And I will live forever in the house of spirit where there is no chaos.
It's beautiful. You know, as you were talking earlier, I was reminded of playing with my son when he was really very little. And we had, as many of you have, a box of red blocks, wooden blocks. And we would build these huge buildings, castles. And he would build and I would build. And then he would say, Daddy, I said, what? He said, let's tear it down. Mm-hmm. And so we would start pulling out the blocks until the whole thing fell down. When the whole thing fell down, we had what you could call chaos. If you were to look at it, you would say, that's just a mess. What are you going to clean up the mess? And every time Aaron, my son, would see the pile of, he would say, oh, great, now we can build something. And I think what we're looking at now is in the midst of chaos, there's a chance to build something. And the blocks that seem disassembled or disconnected are not necessarily without reason or purpose. And they don't exist necessarily separate from one another, even though they may not seem connected. We get to be the architects. And more than that, if after we build something that doesn't work, we can tear it down again. And maybe a lot of what's happening right now is we're tearing down and building up at the same time. And it's difficult to figure out where we are with that, but that's probably where we are. And that's at our most creative best. Mm-hmm. You know, what I know from history, in fact, what I know from what I've heard recently is that never in the history of humankind has there been such fast action towards creating a vaccine. And so what has created this fast action? What has created hundreds of people and scientists and research and lots of money to be spent? A state of chaos, a state of utter confusion, a state of being overwhelmed. So in the overwhelm and in the confusion, what do we have? We have invention. And so when I look at my idea of what I wanted to share today was to look at the world with kindness or through the eyes of kindness. I mean, look at the chaos and say, wow, I wonder what we will build, rather than who broke it and why is it broken. And if we could find out who broke it and we could blame them, maybe we could even send them to jail, and then we could do what? Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we could go back to looking at what we've got and start building. Why don't we start building now? And why don't we enroll in kindness all of those who didn't know we could be builders? There's a lot of people right now who aren't sure how to build, so they would rather have a commentary on what was badly built or what was wrong with what's wrong with what was built. And that's not very useful.
Not helpful. Well, exactly. And what we're having now is world cooperation and coming together. And, you know, what we're developing are a lot of the relationships and skills that we really need to turn our attention to healing our earth and creating a place where humanity can continue to live uh, more than past 2050. You know, wonderful things are actually being discovered and invented. And um, I even read an article about where a new algae is being used to put on the reefs to bring the reefs back to life.
Yeah.
Hallelujah. I mean, that's incredibly important for our oceans because that's the nesting place of so many fish that feed the whole supply chain. Besides the fact it's beautiful to look at when you dive. But more than that, it's very useful for the ocean. And so I think that a lot of wonderful things can come out of this if we look in that direction and feel the joy of that. Because it depends on how much social isolation you're having to endure right now. And I feel very fortunate to live with someone with whom I'm harmonious because um, being spending all that time alone is a little counter to our human nature.
Mm.
Some people are happy with that, but very few. And so if you find yourself in that position, you really want to do all that you can to connect by phone, by Zoom, you know, talking to the people. It's almost as good, especially if you can look at them. If you can see them on FaceTime or a Zoom call or WhatsApp is a wonderful app also for seeing each other face to face.
Well, I think another possibility too is for us to look not at not being able to have the relationships we had, but maybe having better relationships. Maybe on a Zoom, excuse me, maybe on a Zoom call or on a FaceTime call, we can ask better questions of the person that we care about. Maybe there's a lot of unanswered questions that have gone unanswered for a very long time because we have been in a physical close proximity, which is almost like being together. And I would suggest that for some of us, we haven't been together with members of our family in a long time, even when we sat side by side at the same dinner table eating the same meal. And maybe this is a time for us to reach out and say, I need to connect with you at a deeper level. I'm feeling what's missing, but I don't want it to stay missing. And if things get really bad, I can always say, I've got a phone call, I have to go. So you have a built-in out if you need one. But I'm suggesting that this is a chance for us to increase intimacy into me see and into you see and into us sharing, as opposed to, I can't believe this, we've got to do this Zoom thing. And I'm not really into technology, which is a favorite thing I hear people say. So are you really into personal conversation? Not at the dinner table, no. Well, are you into personal, no, not later after we watch television. Well, when are you into personal conversation? We're going to get to that, but probably on a holiday when we go on vacation. That'll be a good time. We can talk. No, we won't. No, we'll drink. You know, we'll swim. We'll go on rides, but we won't talk to each other. So this is really a chance for you to spend time with you with kind eyes, for you to look at yourself kindly and look at the people that you're with kindly and say, wow, looking through the world with kindness, I wonder if it changes anything. I wonder if I will see things I haven't seen before.
Exactly. And you made a great point. Bob's writing a memoir right now, and he made a great point in his memoir when someone asked him if how he managed to forgive, you know, some of the wrongs that were done in his childhood. And he said, you know, I was bit once by a dog. Can I tell her? Or do you want to tell that story?
Go ahead. I like how you tell
I was bit once by a dog, and it hurt and it scarred me. And you might ask, how did I forgive the dog? And he said, I didn't need to forgive the dog. I needed to understand why he bit me. And I looked at the situation. He was a guard dog. He was doing what he was trained to do. I entered his territory and I got bit. So there's nothing to forgive. And if we think of this with our loved ones that we may feel we need to forgive or they need to forgive us, I suggest really what you need is understanding. If you can understand why the person may have done what they did, how they acted like they did, what was their need, what was their fear, what was going on with them, and try not to take it personally and look at it in that regard. And you may find if you can come to an understanding of what they were afraid of, what they needed that they weren't getting, you might suddenly understand them and no longer feel any need to try to forgive them. Because trying is what we do most often. We keep trying to forgive them unsuccessfully, and then we try again.
60 or more years ago, I got a chance to meet Dr. Albert Ellis. I've spoken of him many times. I went to the Ellis Institute, he was the father of rational emotive therapy, cognitive therapy, actually. And he had a saying that his premise, which I love, and I can't say it enough, nor do I think we need to hear it enough, and that is, we're always doing the best we can, always, given what we know and given what we believe. And in fact, if we didn't do the best we could, given what we know and what we believe, we would be crazy, and we're not crazy. We have some crazy beliefs, and we know some pretty crazy stuff, and that makes us do some pretty crazy things, but not because, I decided today just to live a half-assed life, that would be good for me. No, we're living a full-assed life, we're out there. We're doing the best we can with misinformation, having made a lot of mistakes.
And sometimes not having enough information.
Well, yes, and so, but I think the clear premise that I want to work with is if you ask anybody who's harmed you, were they doing the best they could given what they knew and they believed? No, the answer would be yes, and they believe some pretty crazy things, sometimes about you, sometimes about themselves, and sometimes about the world. I met somebody recently, and he said, "Did you work in a hospital?" I said, "Yes." And I said, "What kind of hospital did you work in?" "Well, I worked in several." "Did you ever work in a psychiatric hospital?" "I sure did." "I'm not talking to you. You're one of them." "What do you mean one of them?" You're one of the dark side of the world that is trying to hurt everybody into.
Was this a Scientologist?
Similar. And it's like, wow. So I don't have a chance with you, not given my beliefs and my experience, and given what they believed and they thought to be true, they would have been crazy to have listened to me. And I guess what I had to come away with is you're doing the best you can given what you know and what you believe. Maybe sometime that will change, but until then, I don't have to make you wrong. I just have to cut you some slack, give you a little bit of distance, and understand we're probably going to have a really limited relationship. So limited that, in fact, if we never see each other again, it'll be exactly what is in mind. That's okay. But I think to release, not with, "I forgive you." By the way, that's pretty self-righteous, and I'm glad I could do that. I'm glad I'm better than you are, and I could forgive. Well, forgiveness has its place, but understanding probably could precede a lot of what forgiveness requires, which is an understanding. You get to an understanding. I don't want this to happen to me anymore. It doesn't mean that it's bad for everyone, but it sure is bad for me.
Exactly. So back to my point about we have choice. We have choice about how much we get out there and circulate. And I honor all of your choices. We're not going to be meeting together for some time until I see some numbers come down. And they're not coming down in most areas. They're going up, which may happen even more so. I'm talking about numbers of COVID cases. Somewhere and with getting out there, they may go up even more. So I hope we're enjoying the Zoom meeting, because I am. But what you do is what you assess is right for you, and I honor that choice. And many of you will be doing different things depending on your risk assessment and your needs. So I want to address some of the needs of when you are spending a lot of time home alone and are not happy about that. The best thing you can do is, first of all, acknowledge yourself. This is hard, and I acknowledge you for that. It's hard. And second of all, what I do when I start thinking, gee, all I do is go from the office computer to the kitchen to the TV to the kitchen. I do have a bedroom and a bathroom. I go there sometimes, but it just seems like I'm going back and forth to the same rooms all the time.
Yesterday, I walked down to the mailbox.
It
It was so exciting. I know we didn't have any mail, but I wanted to walk down there to get out of the house. Yeah.
Getting out for a walk is a good thing, but with all this rain we're having in the afternoons, that's harder. So getting out to walk, bike, swim, whatever you can do is good. But the most important thing you can do while you're home is start thinking about what you have to be grateful for. That is the biggest mood switcher you can do. I'm grateful that I'm healthy, I'm alive, I'm here. Yay. And next, what's next on the survival list? Food. I have enough food. Aren't I fortunate? That's great. Family. I've got some family alive. I may not be able to spend time with them or see them in person, and I might here or there. I might be able to meet with them here or there. cautiously, carefully, and so that's your choice and that's your priority. So, but give thanks for your family support. Um, give thanks for Zoom and the internet, and the ability to connect with people. We're very fortunate to have good internet, and those who are in the country are really suffering right now, even to be it for the kids to do schoolwork. So we're grateful for interconnection, and then try to see this whole chaos thing as an opportunity for rebirth, and think of the good things that are coming out of it. The care, the honoring of our caregivers, and coming together for new vaccines and working together, those kinds of things, and imagine what could come out of this as we're reborn.
The other day, as I went through this entire list, and all I wanted to do was burn it because it was, thank you, Judith, for sharing, but I don't want any of this. I was having a tantrum, an adult tantrum, which is a child's tantrum with a good reason. And I turned on YouTube and I went to Tina Turner live concert, one of her last live concerts. I can't think of the song. I played it for you a bunch of times.
Proud Mary.
Proud Mary. Oh my God! By the time I got done with that,
Rolling
I was,
river.
yeah, it was. Music is incredible, and YouTube. But you really don't listen to it on. But if you can, don't listen to it on your computer. Listen to it with a pair of headphones, because when you listen to it with headphones, you're suddenly there. And I'll tell you, music is so transforming. It really is. If you can't get through the muck and mire of your own thinking in your own mind, turn on a piece of wild, crazy, amazing music, and don't even think about the lyrics necessarily, but think about how it feels to listen to that. And then if you can, go back to the list of all the things you can be grateful for, one of which is YouTube and all the music that's free. And so I think it's you have to be as resourceful as is necessary for you to have the freedom that you require. For you to be as resourceful as necessary has always been your job. And the lack of freedom is often a lack of our own resourcefulness. When somebody jokingly said to me, so what would you do if you were in prison? I said, well, what kind of prison? I said, well, what if you had to spend your entire life in a cell? And I said, could I have permission to have paint? And they said, yes. I said, I would paint a door. I would paint a landscape. I would paint a scene. And I would live in the forest. And when you get tired of that, what would you do? Well, then I'd paint an ocean scene. I would have a different scene that I would paint either in my mind or in reality every day of the week, because I wouldn't want to live in a prison that didn't have all of what I want. It's what you bring to the prison that gets you out of prison. It's not the prison itself that can keep you locked in. We're not locked in. None of us are locked in. I can't think of a better example than that. In the last 6 weeks, I've written 32,000 words for my memoir, which I never would have been able to get to or spend the time writing had I not been in this state, this sequestered state.
One last thing I wanted to remind you of that's a way of getting out without leaving home are all the wonderful opportunities available on the internet right now. So many organizations have made their offerings free that they used to charge a lot of money for. HeartMath has a global coherence of meditation that they do weekly that you can participate with. Our organization does online prayer and meditations also. The science organization, which is resonanceScience.org, is fabulous for the free videos and training that's available there. But I just noticed a lot of people are just offering for free what they used to charge for, just to help. Just to help, yeah. So, but if you're at your computer all day long, the last thing you're going to want to do is go to your computer again. So it's an individual thing.
It's even bigger than that. I found out Toyota, Honda, Subaru, Hyundai, and Lincoln, Ford, Mercury they're behind us.
They're behind us?
They said, we're there for you. I'm not sure I think I have to buy one of their cars, but I saw the ad that said, we're there for you. And I thought, damn, that is so nice to hear that. I don't know what it means exactly, but just take the words and put them with all the other words that are kind and caring, and try not to, they just want money. You can always find a reason that somebody's going to say they like you, but go ahead and let them like you anyway, for whatever reason. The truth is, if they get to like you for the wrong reason, eventually, if you hang out long enough, they'll get to like you for the right reason. It just is the nature of us, is that we eventually are revealed, and people get to like us for who we are, not for what we have that they can get from us or we can give them.
So in closing,
Yes.
I would like to remind you that the source where you're going to find the greatest peace and peace of mind is by going within. So do take this time to really go within, learn to listen to spirit, ask questions, allow yourself to be loved and nourished by spirit. If you feel lonely, what you're really lonely for is your connection with the divine. Let that fill you up, and it will just make you totally content. And it may not last forever, but do that as much as you can.
And I don't want to forget something that is important for us, and that is we are part of CSLPalmBeaches.org. That's our organization. And if you are inclined and feel that what you've gotten or are getting from these Sunday messages and our work is worth donating to, then go to our site. There's a donate button. And that does help us overcome the cost that we have in actually running a center. We're not just video. It's not just on the video. We actually have a center, and a lot of the people that we have and that we serve are on the video today on our Zoom. For those of you on Facebook pages who don't know that, if you will Facebook message me, I'd be more than glad to give you the YouTube or the Zoom numbers that you can call next week if you want to be on the Zoom call as well. We're actually doing click. We're doing a we do it both ways. We go both ways.
Right. Some people can call in, but most people do it on their computers or iPads.
Yeah.
So, in closing, shall we do a closing prayer?
Sure.
Let's do. Okay. So join with me, if you would, in mind, and know that we honor, love, and acknowledge there is but one life, one mind, one infinite intelligence. And we call that spirit. And we know that is everywhere present, including within every cell of our bodies, within the space of the cells of our body. It is us as us. And as we know that, we know we cannot be separated from it. And it always has our best interest in mind. So we allow ourselves to be lifted by it, loved by it, supported by it. And we allow it to fill our hearts with love.
And now you know why I married Judith. For treatments like that, for prayer like that. This is what I live with every day. The kindness of heart that each of us has that we celebrate today, the kindness of heart that allows us to reach further and deeper into our own consciousness. The kindness of heart, the kindness that we have that allows us to be who we are in the most grand and wonderful way. I know this is true. I know this is a beautiful thing that we are experiencing and enjoying. And so I say thank you. Thank you.
And together we say,
you. And so it is.
So it is.
And I'm going to sign up on our Facebook.
And I am going to sign up on the recording.